So I have a quick question. So you felt the need to come to this podcast, but like this is completely days after the fact that you defended a light-skinned woman for colorism, and then calling the darker-skinned people who were outright calling the light-skinned woman who supported colorism out for colorism. You called them colorist. So for the fact that you don't even know what colorism is.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was gonna ask. What would you define as colorist, and why were you calling maybe the darker skinned people colorist? And why were you calling maybe the darker skinned people colorist? So as you can see, this is going to be a drama-filled episode. But before we get into that, I do want to get into a little bit of what Red Rose Media is, why we're doing the Flagrant Leftist podcast in the first place. I have been doing this work since I was about 15. I'm 25 now, and I just think left media is just boring a lot of the times. I myself watched a lot of the Zoom panelist calls where it's just 4 people and they kind of talk about a topic they all agree on, and that's just not what we want to do here. We want to bring people on that we can challenge. We want y'all to feel like y'all are a part of the experience, feel like you're there growing with us, and I think that's what we're starting to accomplish. At the time that you're seeing this, we've recorded a few episodes, and I do think y'all are going to get tremendous value from it. This is an educational platform. It's going to be fun and entertaining, but at the end of the day, we want y'all to learn something from it. I'm a radical leftist, and that is where my political thought lies, but I want to bring people across the leftist spectrum on this show. These guys, it's a couple of Antifa guys, and we hold them accountable this episode. Even beyond the phone call that you just heard, we are getting into a wide variety of things. So I'm excited for y'all to get into this episode. Thank you so much for the support up until this point. And yeah, I just hope y'all are ready to hop on this journey with us, and I'm excited. What's up, everybody? It's the Flagrant Leftist podcast. We have special guests, but first, as always.
So if we're going to do media, we can't follow them. We have to have our own concepts. We have to actually go against what they consider to be media, because what they consider to be media is not media. It's just to excite the people, waste their times in frivolity and frivolity. And if you're going to be a media for people who are oppressed, you must give them clear political facts, historical facts, scientific facts, so they can accumulate these facts to help in their process of liberation.
So we are here with some dope people. We've been talking a little bit, and I want them honestly to introduce themselves. I have a similar story. There was just something that called me to actually step up and start doing something, and then just more and more seeing how capitalism was so evil made me get even more involved. So that's really interesting that was kind of both of y'all's start too. What made you get into the anti-fascist sort of side of left politics?
I guess for me, it was probably because obviously growing up, I mean, I have a mullet, I'm white, and also I played lacrosse, so I'm around a whole bunch of people who are conservative, or maybe their parents definitely seem very sketchy, and the stuff that they would say about other people, and I guess also my grandparents on my dad's side were white supremacists, and I was just like, nah, that's not the route that I like to take. Like all these people that I hung out, I was more like in the middle, whatever, but like the friends that I talked to were like, yo, what your people are saying, and like what your teammates, your parents, what they believe, like that's not cool. And like I said, Colin Kaepernick, he definitely like opened me up to like the anti-fascist movement and what it's like. Obviously, like on my side of town where I lived, I didn't have to see the stuff that people see in the third or fifth ward.
Yeah. And so how has that shaped now how you move in politics? So you had such a like firsthand experience with the white ruling class kind of within it. So how does that shape how you move now?
used to like when I first got into this, I used to be that like white savior kind of person. Like, I know what you need. I know this. And like as I grew up, like further into activism, I was like, people would like tell me, hey, yo, you kind of like being a white savior. Like what you need, like our job as white people is to teach other white people or call out when other white people are out of line. And especially when they see when white people see somebody like me, a white skinny boy with a mullet, they think I'm going to be on their side. So they're comfortable in the conversation, like in the dialect, the language that they use. And so it's like when they say stuff to me, I'm like, hey, yo, like, nah.
It was, I think, an abortion protest that we were going to, and I think your actions were sort of out of line of what the protest kind of called for. And if you can speak on that, maybe a time where you were acting more sort of on behalf of what you felt and like what you wanted to do.
Oh, yes, the 4th of July one where we burnt the flag.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because like what we did was legal. Like even like the people
First
like,
Amendment, right?
Yeah, the people who got arrested, him and somebody else, like the cops didn't even understand why they got, and obviously they only got a detainment charge, right?
Well, I didn't even get charged. I just got detained.
Yeah, it looked like you just got released right
but
there.
it was like,
they were trying to charge us with something. They were trying to get us to get booked. And it just didn't work out. They Discovery Green didn't want to press charges. And they ran out of options, so they had to let us go.
And Ripken was fucking out of there. I mean, like,
before
you could blink, Ripken was fucking
like,
2 miles.
This
motherfucker really thought I was going to snitch, bro.
Yeah, I would be honest. I was like, wait, yo.
I grew up in poverty, bro. You know, zip it and lock it, pop it.
How did you feel when you got detained? Was it like, oh, okay, this is my brother, like, whatever it is, or were you kind of like, damn, Ripken, like you were kind of hoping that nigga came back, or how were you feeling?
Like when it comes down to arresting, you gotta be your own man. You know, I would have ran too. I just thought that's common courtesy. You know what I mean? It's just like run and hope your friends don't snitch, because you know that's just the type of rules I grew up with around the neighborhood.
So most people at the protest were like getting hyped that we burnt the flag.
Majority
of people were like,
I didn't see anybody that was disappointed. When I was actually getting detained, this fucking bootlicker to the left of me was like, "Good job, officers." And I was like,
Jesus.
There was like other people that were like, "Fuck 12," and like, "Fuck you," like let them go.
So
right.
So it's calculated when you're taking these risks. You're saying like,
I knew, I was like, we're gonna do it. Like if we're gonna we're not gonna burn it at City Hall. We're gonna do it at the very end, like, because I'm like, because just doing a march, because also when she was like, we weren't planning it, because originally it was like 2 days before the protest, there wasn't supposed to be a police like escort or whatever, which I hate those fucking protests.
Yeah,
the police escort that shit, like, nah,
it's pointless.
That. Yeah, and I'm like, however, if you don't do this, especially because we're not gonna have thousands of motherfuckers out there. Like we did in Black Lives Matter in all these cities. Like, we could shut down the streets, but in this case, like, we're not going to have enough people to do that. And then that was a late notice to finally get the cops. I'm like, oh my God, it's going to be. And I saw, like, they had these SWAT like these, like, cars or trucks, whatever you want, vehicles that had, like, people that cops in riot gear ready. I know because I've seen them before. I've seen them in Minneapolis and I've seen them here. They look the same.
Oh, you talking about those Army personnel trucks?
Yeah, like those. Those are just those cops filled with riot gear and tear gas and all that stuff. And I was like, but I'm like, we're going to do it at the very end. It's peaceful. We're not going to be like fucking like, let's burn down the whole damn park. But it's going to be like we're going to burn it and then that's it. Like, and I assume since it's literally protected on the Trump tried to make it illegal. He wanted it to be a crime for you to burn a flag.
Yeah, that's fucked up. Sure. And so
I guess like the only like lesson I would take out of that probably would be like not do that again unless you know that there are going to be people that are going to be siding with you and not trying to spill a narrative that she did. I mean, her and I are like cool, I guess. Like we've talked at protests after that.
They don't hate each other.
Yeah, but it's not like we're like beefing or whatever.
Yeah. And I think another lesson would just be risk versus reward, because although nothing did happen in that instance with being detained, we've seen just people of color's interaction with police, whether that's some random shit like they're just walking, like they can literally just be walking. So as like the smallest of interactions can be detrimental and should be kind of handled with care, just because the stakes are so high when people of color are dealing with the police. So if some of your actions may enhance the likelihood that people of color are going to come in contact with police, maybe on your behalf, and maybe even you standing there and taking that little bullshit detainment, like, instead of running.
Yeah.
And it's good that now, like, sitting here, you can be like, okay, I'll take accountability that situation may have not been the best. I could have handled it better. Whatever the case is, I think that's good for people to see too. So yeah, I think that's just like a fun process, honestly, as leftists, is to be able to like bounce off each other and be like, well, this is like you being able to justify, this is why I did that. This is why, fuck whatever Gabby said, like, this is why it was cool. Yeah. And like just hearing how you can be accountable. I think that process is cool. Yeah. And
yeah, it could have been a lot more smoother, you know.
Like I said, like I don't take what I back. Like most of the stuff that I say, I don't take back unless someone is like, hey, yo, that's kind of like out of line. Like maybe something that I didn't know of. But in the stuff that I do, because like also U of H, we had the Matt Walsh came and we dressed up in black bloc. Mm-hmm. And that was like not really a protest where we should have been in black bloc.
Yeah, it's another thing we could be held accountable for. And of course, we apologize for that.
Like you've only been in it for a little bit, so it's obvious like you're going to come to some shit overdressed or, you know, like in black bloc when you shouldn't be. I did see that video actually, and y'all were the only ones in black bloc, I guess. Was it just okay?
Well, so, I mean, but there were other people that had masks on. Yeah, it's pretty fair, you know. It still hides your identity, but
they said it just kind of painted a different picture than they wanted of the protests.
But we're majority peaceful, and I say majority because there was a couple incidents where there was some right-wing infiltrators on our side, and we just wanted to be able to deter violence. And you know, right-wing media likes to paint a bad picture on the LGBTQ community and leftists in general.
Facts.
You know what I mean? So
yeah.
And it's also like when we go to these protests, like when there's like far right people that are going to be there or agitators, like we're not there to be like, oh, we're gonna go fuck them up. But it's like if they go and like antagonize peaceful, especially like the people where there's like a mix of people who are willing to get violent, willing to get down to it, or there's others that want to stay peaceful and like that do not like violence. Like if it's like, and they start agitating, they start even like pushing or anything, it's like, you want to be on our side and you want to like assault people, fuck them up. Like if you see a Nazi, fuck them up. But I think I'm not like saying like go to a store, you see him hit his fucking lights out, right? But I'm saying like if it's to protect you or somebody else, fuck them up. And
okay, what's your Nazi body count? How many Nazis have you fucked up?
So like fuck up, like because there's never been a time where I've like beat them, like where I've gotten knocked out.
It's kind of hard to fight like in a protest in Texas.
Yeah,
it's not like Portland. You know what I mean?
I mean Minneapolis, I hit 2 Nazis, and at that time I didn't carry brass knuckles. Now I do, and I mean of course if you can get a right hit with the knuckles, like you can knock them out.
You could fucking make them bleed. Like,
and shit, technically you can kill them with a hit. But I'm like, because like most of the time when you get in scuffles, it's there for like 15, 20 seconds and then cops come. I mean, I got a push in at the Katy protest. I never got in a punch. I mean, in the downtown Houston one, we could have actually like gone on and full on like fight on both sides, just clash together. But because they wanted to be loud and chant "fuck Antifa" the whole time.
Yeah, like if you really want to fight, then don't say anything.
Yeah,
you know
like
what
you
I mean?
come over, like they were silent,
just do it.
And then once they saw me and a couple other people, that's when they were starting to chant "fuck Antifa."
Exactly.
But like I guess in general, pushing and shoving several, but I mean where I've gotten good punches in, I'd say 2, maybe 3.
Got you. Okay, so we're still on the Nazi hunt. Good. And on Minneapolis, like I feel like we have to touch on it. I don't know how much you can touch on it, but yeah, what was that like? I know you were probably just getting out of high school. Yeah. If that was the 20. So how was that? Like, did you travel there with anyone, or were you solo?
Yeah. Oh yeah, I traveled with someone because I had never been to Minnesota in general. But like I went down there, or up there, I guess technically. Like it was good, right? Like we were peacefully protesting. We were like, and there was hundreds, like about.
What made you go down there? Like just seeing it on fucking seeing it everywhere, just seeing how big those were?
Well, like that, and also because I had family, like, grew up in Pennsylvania, and I had like, there was like times like where we could have drove, and I had some friends that I knew, and so we drove down to Minneapolis, and we saw how big it was, and also it was like, I mean, we could go to Philly, but we would want to go like, I don't know how long of a drive it was, but it's like take a road trip and go down to where this shit happened. And there was a lot, and like most of the days it was like good, but like at night after a few hours, that's when the tear gas came out, and it's kind of like, and when these people that say like, what's the right way to like, don't riot, and I'm like, when you're protesting against something and that something is starting to shoot bullets at you, rubber bullets at you, because like even though they're supposed to hit the ground, they were definitely like aiming at us, and in Houston too. But I'm like, now what? Fuck you.
Yeah, the BLM protest reminds me of the civil rights movement, of how police would agitate protesters. Yeah, and like Bernie Sanders was there, and like a couple more white people. So it wasn't just black people that was being targeted; it was people that supported black people for their rights. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it was like everybody that was there that like was as if they were down for the movement, they were getting attacked, and it was like that's when it was like. When people were running and all that, and I'm like, oh shit, now it's getting real, and that's when the violence started.
Yeah, peace wasn't an option anymore.
Like I'm like, and especially like in those places where like there was like those corners of like Arby's, like especially like the famous one where the dude is throwing up the fist in front of the Arby's, like that place, it was hot. It was it was hot. It was.
And were you worried at all about getting in any trouble from?
I was probably more worried about like getting either hurt or killed. It was something like we were talking about something and it blew out of proportion and turned into something completely different. That's basically that's all I was finishing off when y'all like came in.
So I have a quick question. So you felt the need to come to this podcast, but like this is completely days after the fact that you defended a light-skinned woman for colorism, and then calling the darker-skinned people who were outright calling the light-skinned woman who supported colorism out for colorism. You called them colorist. So for the fact that you don't even know what colorism is.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was gonna ask. What would you define as colorist, and why were you calling maybe the darker skinned people colorist?
Well, so what I believe colorism was, I assumed it was somebody who could have maybe, I don't know what the word is, but could be discriminatory against someone who has a lighter or darker skin tone. That's what I thought colorism was. So when Mia called, was complaining, like talking about how Olivia was was saying like, well, first off, fat shaming her, but then also calling her, having her ablation moment. That's what I thought was colorist.
Oh no! Especially wait. That was Olivia's words. Olivia used the term "blasian moment" when putting down darker-skinned women and uplifting herself because of the fact that she's mixed and she's light-skinned.
Right, and Ripken, you know that because I said that. I said that in the messages. So how could you possibly have had the wrong understanding when it was explained multiple times?
Okay, I don't know what was explained multiple times. I thought you said Olivia having her Blasian moment.
I'll jump in real quick. So I think they're saying that was only being quoted about Olivia. Yeah. Olivia had already said that, and then so I think maybe you were a little confused as well.
Oh yeah, I did not know that was quoted.
But your definition of colorism is a little off as well.
That's the problem.
And I think that's part of their issue is that as black people, they don't want you using words and accusing people of things that's very intercommunal if you don't really know what the word means, because it isn't discriminatory against light-skinned people. It is specifically about being discriminatory against darker-skinned people. So I guess was that the beginning of sort of the strife?
The whole thing started between Mia and this other girl that I don't want to I don't know if we should.
Right, it had nothing to do with you, Ripken. Yeah. Let's talk about that. It had nothing to do with you. Isn't that right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Right, but you thought it was smart to not only join in on the conversation, but then also speak over several Black people in that conversation, and like literally participate in the bullying of those Black people.
Yeah, I can understand. Like, that wasn't my intention, but I can totally understand. Like that's how you perceived it, and yeah, obviously it
was.
Hold on, let Ricky speak, because I really want to get this out once Ricky finishes.
All right. So yeah. So like I was saying, I was like, yeah, I completely understand. Like obviously that wasn't my intention, but however, I do see like what you mean by how you perceived what I was saying.
In the initial conversation, you weren't saying all this, oh, I understand BS. You weren't saying that. Actually, you doubled down upon it by saying, actually, I'm not making fun of you due to your education. I'm making fun of your education because of your age. You doubled down upon it. So, like, why are you trying to, like, save yourself by being like, oh, well, I understand now that you're in front of a public audience, but when you were doing it behind closed doors, you weren't saying any of that.
And I also want to add, mind you, Ripken, even after the people that you were quote unquote defending had left the group chat, you stayed in there to argue with Gremlin. We have videos. So what are you talking about? There was no, I see what you're saying. I understand what I'm doing. What the problem is. You were confronted about the colorism, because what I don't understand is somebody who dedicates their platform to quote unquote addressing racism, dismantling white supremacy. You jumped at the opportunity to then perpetuate it. Then when we told you what you were doing, why it was wrong, you said nothing.
So actually, I did address that. I understand the point that Gremlin is coming upon. I never said it in message, or like I never said it through the call, one of the few calls. However, I did say it through the text messages.
What I want to ask you right now is what were you trying to gain from doing that?
I wasn't really trying to gain anything. It's because I thought
and
that
I feel like you'd be ready to apologize now at this point, hearing that you were completely wrong on what colorism meant, hearing certain shit, like you just have more information now. So I feel like you would be at the point where you're like, okay, I'm sorry for.
I mean, yeah, now that
shit.
like cooler, like now that it's been like 2 or 3 days or something like that since the stuff has happened, like I apologize. Like obviously what I said was like what you could call a white supremacist talking point. Attacking a Black woman's education.
Okay, I feel like we've made a lot. Okay, sorry, y'all can go ahead.
I was going to say this too. Also, as well, Ripken, you should know that bigger corporations and like schools, like schooling, has nothing to do with actual intelligence, right? You know this.
Yes.
So, it was a obviously different response when you were in the midst of it, when you were angry, and that can be a good lesson, honestly, that maybe when you're being confronted with something as sensitive as this, it'll be good to like take a second, maybe try to evaluate, especially if it's something like this. I just feel like you knew you had no idea what the fuck colorism meant.
He had an idea.
Yeah, because like another thing is when we were talking about it in a separate group chat, like everyone in the group chat that I'm in believed that you could be colorist towards a light-skinned woman.
Okay, so you were getting bad info. You were getting bad information.
Yeah.
So it was a
but it's like, Ripken, you don't know how to do research? I'm confused. Like, there is no excuse. I'm not giving you.
Yeah, you're right. There isn't an excuse.
I'm gonna do like a basic Google search.
So what makes you any better than RC?
No, wait, hold on. So Mia, I'm gonna do a basic definition search for the word colorism. So it only took me one Google search by simply colorism definition, and it says prejudice or discrimination against individuals with a darker skin tone, typically among the people of the same ethnic or racial group. So Ripken, if it only took me one Google search to find this information.
Yeah, like, okay, so yeah, you're right. I should have Googled or researched what colorism meant. I thought I had known the meaning. So that's why I didn't Google search thing. If I say something wrong, I want to be called out, like, especially if it's racist, homophobic, transphobic, whatever, right?
Yeah.
I would like to be called out for it, especially if it's something that I've been saying that is wrong. Like, of course, yeah, I want to be like, so I don't fucking say that shit anymore and actually learn from it. Like, yeah, what I did say, I meant to, not like I didn't mean it as in a like I'm trying to be racist. I meant it as in like, oh yeah, you goofy, you idiot, like whatever, like a little insult. It wasn't supposed to be. Obviously it was.
And
correct.
then you can also recognize how even unintentionally that may have been just something instilled in you, something you learned that was rooted in white supremacy or racism. I think
I was taught like that even mattered is a white supremacist like notion. So
to be fair, you know, people learn every single day. Today is the first day that I found out what colorist means. Yeah. And, you know, like it's just like.
Yeah, and it's good, and I think that is what we want to show ultimately, because ultimately we don't want to, or at least on this podcast, literally I don't care what other people want to do or like people in your personal life, but on this podcast we don't want to kick your back in, and we don't want to show someone getting their back kicked in a way that's like gonna have them stop doing the work that they're doing. But we do want to show people taking their time to hold you accountable, you respecting that. And I think we have sort of shown that. And I think you have answered to it, and you started to reach a place of being more apologetic. And I think that's what we wanted ultimately.